Welcome to the Lifetime at Work podcast, episode number 12, the podcast where we talk about our careers and what work life is really like, the good, the bad, and everything we're trying to achieve. We spend so much of our lives at work. How do we make the time count? My name is Greg Martin, and I have over 10 years experience in the investment banking world, and now I am the co-owner and CEO of a food business called Farmer. And every week I talk to guests from the business world about the happiness, challenges, and meaning they get from their jobs. The goal is to learn about why people do what they do and help you build more meaning, more purpose, and more fulfillment into your work. And this week I'm talking to a lawyer. He's worked at a big firm, but he doesn't anymore, and he doesn't even practice law anymore. Why and what he's doing is up next. So let's get going with the intro music. If you're a fan of the podcast, you can check out the website lifetimeatwork.com and follow everything there, as well as find links to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and maybe even leave me a review. Rather than do a sponsor this week, I'm going to try doing something a little bit different and really just tell you about my company, Farmer Prepared Meals, because it's a business that's really important to me and means a lot, and we are always doing so much, and so I wanted to just be able to share just a little bit of something of what we're doing. But we are a prepared meals company, and lately we have been all up in Christmas and the holiday season and doing these gift boxes, and so it's been just a really great way for us to have people try our food. We're effectively a brand new business that's really only been around since the summer, and trying to expand. We are trying to get our message across, and so it's been really helpful to have people buying our meals as gifts and giving to those other people. We package them up really nice, and I think the holiday season was a success for us. We definitely sold a lot of boxes. People were in the giving spirit, and it's just such a great thing to be able to send someone a meal when you can't go out these days and eat at a restaurant and enjoy each other's company. So these have really, really worked well. And I think basically what we're thinking in January is that we'll sort of transform these holiday gift boxes and make them into sort of an every occasion gift box where, you know, if there's a new baby or really just any birthday or any celebration that you want. So think about it. And if you are tired of cooking a little bit and you would like a break, check out farmr.ca. And you can always use the code IKnowGreg, all one word, and you'll get some form of discount on your next meal. I've been really curious about the world of law, especially lately, but I've just always have been. I've liked, I think, lawyer TV shows and always just been fascinated, I think, with people who have become lawyers. And so in this podcast, I haven't really interviewed someone about being a corporate lawyer. I used to work with a lot of corporate lawyers actually as well, and they live an interesting life that I've just been sort of intrigued with. And so I in particular have been looking for someone with a prototype where they worked at a big firm and then they left. And I really just think that that is a good way to understand, hey, what are the pros, cons of working at a big firm versus the other things you can do as a lawyer, because a lawyer brings you a lot of options throughout the world of law, but also just expanding upon other things. And so when I thought about Adam Armeland, who I know and had a past with in the food world, he actually used to be a lawyer and was for a while at McCarthy's. He did kind of the big real estate law thing and now is really doing something different. And so I think it's really cool to see his perspective on what law really brought him and what he couldn't get from his career in the law world and is now seeking elsewhere. So you'll hear in this interview that we reference and talk a little bit at the very beginning about his current role, which is basically the founder of or co-founder of KitchenHub, which is a shared ghost kitchen where they have a few restaurants in one location, and they, as KitchenHub, do all of the back-end logistics. Like, they really just own a kitchen and let restaurants come and cook in it. And then KitchenHub, which is his company, then sends out the food and organizes all the logistics and all that. So it's a cool business that he's sort of found himself in and really is pioneering in many ways in Toronto. We don't have a ton of these types of things. So we touch on a little bit at the beginning, but get into a lot of the law related stuff and then circle back into KitchenHub at the end. So it's a really cool interview, and you learn a ton about what it's like to be a lawyer and why he loved it and hated it and wanted to do something else. So here's my interview with Adam Armeland. All right, Adam, thanks for joining me on the Lifetime at Work podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Great. Well, I wanted to get into a lot of things relating to law and what you were doing now, but I thought probably the best place to start would be maybe if you just give the 2-minute overview on what you've done, kind of your past and sort of into what you're doing now, and then we'll sort of talk about KitchenHub and kind of your current role after that.
Totally. So grew up and was born and raised in Windsor. Went to Western for undergrad. I majored in philosophy, and I met my wife at Western, and then went on to law school and my MBA at the University of Calgary. From there, went back to Toronto because my wife was here at school, so settled down here. Got a job at Torque and Mains, and then went on to not Ivanhoe, Cambridge, went on to McCarthy's, and then took a big U-turn and went and started my own business. And I think it was something that I always wanted to do. It was something that my wife always encouraged me to do because I always talked about it and dreamed about it, had the ideas book beside my bed, and woke up from sleepless nights and recorded the ideas that I had. And KitchenHub came to be mainly because I saw on a Sunday night going to my local spot that we go to when we don't want to cook dinner for the family.
Yeah.
And I noticed 10 dads sitting and waiting for the food along with me and no one sitting in the seats. Started to think, can you lop off the front of this retail space, give someone a kitchen and sell through these new emerging digital channels, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Skip the Dishes. And from there, just got lost in the world of restaurants, like most people do. I haven't really met anybody that started and intended to stay in restaurants. Normally, they come from somewhere else and have this incredible backstory. So, didn't intend to get into the restaurant business, but kind of saw that opportunity and dug deep down and never hit a roadblock on moving forward with it. So. Here we are today running KitchenHub.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. And there's a bunch of stuff to talk about with KitchenHub, but one of the things that I thought was interesting, you said in that was that you had kind of always wanted to do the own business thing. Did you have that in your head and thinking about it when you sort of chose your what I'm gonna to pick on a little bit the philosophy degree as well as kind of the JD MBA type stuff? Like, were you always thinking about it?
Yeah, it was always something that. So I grew up in a family where we had our own family business, and I saw what my grandfather was doing in the menswear store that we run in Windsor called Freed's, and I just loved the type of lifestyle that he had. His ability to affect people's lives and bring people into a company and really get people excited about what he was building. So it was always in my blood a little bit. It's something that I grew up in. I was the janitor there. He believed in humility first before getting a good position.
Right.
So I was the janitor cleaning basements that were too small for me. I'm 6'5", so I would always hit my head on light bulbs and break them. And then during Christmas season, which we're about to go into, I would always be on parking lot duty. So I would hand out dollar coins so that people could park on the streets and manage the flow. And it didn't matter if it was rain, shine, or snowstorm. I was out there for 14 hours a day directing cars. It was just grinding through things and figuring things out and learning business from the ground up and the importance of everybody in your business was something that I just grew up with. I don't think that there was any real direct correlation there with philosophy or law or MBA. I just got attracted to philosophy. I think that it's probably one of the best undergrads that you can do. You get the perspective of being able to see problems and things from 50 different sides because you read a bunch of different philosophers and all their thoughts on trying to explain the world in front of you.
Yeah.
So I think that it gives a real distinct advantage to people when you have that ability. And then I went to law and MBA because frankly, my dad's a lawyer and I also grew up with that. And I saw again, the lifestyle and what he was doing. And I really loved going into his office and working with him. So went down that path and became a real estate lawyer, but always knew that I wanted to do business. And so I combined the law and the MBA.
Nice.
And it's, the trifecta there has really served me well. I think that it gives me a lot of perspective on different things, and I'm not so focused just on financials or the legality of things, but also the thoughtfulness that philosophy brings you.
So it was kind of contrived or planned in some way, I guess. Like I was
I
sort of
guess,
thinking
yeah, you
like,
can go there. Yeah.
right, like it sounds like you at least knew that that was sort of the direction you wanted to head, and either you're hedging yourself with a few other ideas or just sort of saying, hey, at least I have these other, just because in one way you could look at them being philosophy, law, business, like they're not necessarily all connected, but they could be.
Yeah, the one thing that I always knew was that there wasn't going to be someone that would pay me to sit on a rock and put my fist on my chin and think. So
Right.
you definitely had to. I knew that I was going to be doing something beyond the philosophy degree,
Yeah.
and I'm not. I like the idea of education and being a teacher, but that's not what my life's work was going to be. So I actually even applied to George Brown coming out of undergrad, because I didn't get into law school initially. And it was actually a week before law school that I got a letter to the wrong email address that I happened to check that had a 3-day expiry on it. And luckily I was just cleaning up an old email and saw it and accepted it. So it was really a happenstance thing. I was totally not going to law school. I was going
Right.
to George Brown for construction management. And then I got in, and that's kind of where my life took me.
And you're randomly like, okay, geez, okay, I'm gonna go this way instead. That's cool.
I actually had my bags packed for a trip to Israel for a month. So I just switched the shorts for a winter jacket and went to Calgary for the first time. I didn't even know what the skyline looked like, to be honest.
Right, right. No kidding. They send you a letter or something? Oh, they just sent you an email. It's being like, hey, you got in.
Yeah,
That's funny.
they sent you an email saying, "Congrats, you got in. If you don't get back to us in the next 3 days, we'll assume that you're passing." And
Jeez.
and I had just happened to read that email. When you have the embarrassing emails from years gone by. It's your nickname growing up, and it was at hotmail.com.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so it was that email. It was that email, and I won't
Right.
repeat what that is on here, because I don't think I want that to get out. Past friends will know that, but I'm not gonna release that here.
Yeah.
So it went to that email, and I had just switched it right after I sent in the application, and then they sent it to the old email, and just happened to do it. Wasn't smart enough to use email forwarding at that point.
No, I guess not. I do get the odd person. Even I think I've switched like 15 years ago, and I get the odd person, who is like, I sent you an email to your Hotmail, and I'm like, I haven't used that in. It's just all these funny conversations that they still have. But okay, so then I guess what happened after you went to, because you took the law path after you said, hey, I'm gonna go pursue the law thing a little bit, sort of right after you came out of your law degree. Was it how does that work though? Maybe start with how does the kind of MBA / law degree, do you just have to take a bunch more extra courses, and then is there anything else that sort of is different than maybe a pure law degree or a pure MBA?
So effectively, what they do is they count. The law degree is 3 years, and the MBA is 2 years.
Okay.
And they count half a year for each of them against each other. They assume that those courses kind of equal each other, so they cancel out half a year for each of them. And then they extend. I was doing law, so I extended my law degree by a year to do my MBA.
Right. Okay. So you can kind of add it on to anything then? Is that how it sort of works?
It's a year. So with law, the law school and the business school have an agreement where they cancel out a year of each other. So,
gotcha.
I took business law, and in the MBA, you would take that also. So they cancel out a certain amount of classes from each other. Yeah. And then it's, instead of a 2-year MBA degree and a 3-year law degree, it's a 4-year joint degree.
Gotcha. And then I guess there's, like, you wrote the bar and everything, so you kind of, I guess, had to say, I'm going to get this law degree and become a lawyer, so I need to do it. So you probably had is that why you had sort of a law tinge, I guess, coming out of school?
Well, what happens is, you kind of get forced into it if you want your law degree to mean anything.
Yeah.
In order to get admitted to the bar, you have to do a year of articling and write the bar exam.
Right.
And so, unless you just kind of want to have a law degree for the sake of having a law degree, you have to go through that rigmarole of being an articling student and applying to the bar. So
Yeah.
that takes a year, and then honestly, I just enjoyed it, so I kept on going with it.
Yeah.
Uh, I found real estate, which I thought that I was going to be a corporate lawyer doing mergers and acquisitions, and I did a real estate rotation and found that passion for real estate. So uh, went down that path. I articled at Torque and Mains, and then I bounced around to a couple of temp jobs at Canadian Tire and Forum Equity Partners, and then I applied to McCarthy's in the infrastructure group, and I was there for 4 years.
Yeah. So it was almost curious though that you did you do the whole recruiting thing? Because I in law there's a big recruiting thing out of school, right? Or were you kind of precluded from that because of the MBA thing?
No, yeah, I did that. So I just got delayed by a year from the initial cohort that I started with.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I flew out from Calgary. They do on campus interviews, and from Toronto they do 6 interviews in Calgary. And to up my chances, I personally came into town and arranged probably 30 interviews to
Jeez.
get into different law firms.
Yeah.
And then yeah, you go through that 3-day recruitment process. You sit and you wait at Wednesday night for an email saying that you got a job. I actually didn't get that email, and had a law firm that followed up with me, and I had mentioned that I actually didn't get a job, and that was Wednesday night, and by Saturday I had an offer to that law firm. They had opened up a spot for me. So
Jeez.
Torque and Mains, if you're listening, thank you for that start of my career.
Yeah, it does seem like I've heard about it, and it just seems like this frantic, like everyone, because they really structure it, I guess, so that everyone is hiring and that you can have an option to go to any firm. But then
Yeah,
it's just it's so many eggs, and just trying to do everything at once, where you're applying to as many jobs as possible, but then trying to focus on the jobs you really want. I guess is that kind of the experience?
yeah, it's all the way down to the point where the day before you have before you start going to the interviews, you actually walk the path to
Yeah,
make sure that you know where you're going, so that
because
you
you
can
got
get between the interviews quick enough
right.
to do it. But an anecdote from that experience, and it's why actually the firm that Torque and Mains, who I work for, why they didn't initially give me an offer, because at the end of the day they called me at 8 o'clock, and obviously after a day of interviewing and running back and forth and everything, you're tired, and I fell asleep on the couch, and I picked up a little bit groggy, and so they thought that I wasn't excited to work for them because I had a little bit of a frog in my throat, and so yeah, that process can work against a lot of people. A lot of great people fall through the cracks because it's just a really intense time, and to be
Yeah.
on that all the time for 3 days nonstop, it's pretty intense for sure.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Okay, so fast forwarding a bit, then you ended up at McCarthy, who's like a big firm, and I've worked with them a bunch of times in my past, and so you went big firm here. I'm curious, like, what was that experience like? I've worked mostly with the security stuff, the M&A guys you thought you'd be, but yeah, from your angle, what was it like to work at a big firm?
I actually loved working at McCarthy's. I thought that it was a great firm, really great people there, and the work is incredible. The stuff that I was sitting on and the work that I was doing from a very young lawyer's perspective was incredible. Multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects and things like that. They do awesome stuff, which a lot of professional firms do. They have a chef on site that's cooking you dinners, and yes, it is dinners because you're stuck at your desk all night.
Yeah,
And stiffins to take out people from other companies and firms and things like that. But it was a great. I view it as university 2.0.
right.
It's the real world and seeing how business works, and it comes at you really fast. And so the 4 years that you see there is invaluable. You see enough deals for a lifetime, and you learn a lot about the way the world works, business, finance, everything. So it was a really incredible experience. I think I actually took 4 months parental leave while I was there. It was the second male to take the 4 months that they allow you. And honestly, it was actually just during that time, spending time with my son, that made me want to leave.
Gotcha.
Taking a little bit back more of my time, being able to be home at the time when he was awake, that just became increasingly important to me. So that was really the reason and the thing that pushed me out of McCarthy's. It wasn't actually the firm or anything like that. It was personal stuff.
What are the hours like? What were the hours like typically for that? You know, you're talking to an investment bank. I know, but like,
Yeah.
anyways, you can.
Yeah,
what were they like?
you want to, it depended. So because I was working on big projects, when I was closing them, they would be about a 3-month close.
Yeah.
And during that 3 months, so man, I think I was there from 8 until 10, 11, 12 at night every day.
Yeah.
And then as you got closer and closer to the finish line, you're basically there all day, every day. But yeah, I guess too. There's nothing like the rush of closing a deal and having 30 people all trying to hammer away at different firms and companies and everything, and coming together and getting that finished product with a bow tied on it, and
Yeah.
Everybody's excited and happy by the time it's done, and then you go home and collapse for a couple of days, and then do it all over again.
Do it again for the next deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is it? And that's the thing. It's not like you're just at your desk processing whatever for all those times. I mean, there's all these things going on and meetings and this and that. Do you want to talk about, because I don't know the real estate angle, but from like, you were an associate and then there's partner and there's like the track there, and sort of what you do as an associate. Like, what was your role as part of the deal typically, and like, what were you involved in when you were working on one of the real estate transactions?
Yeah, at first it's exactly what you think it is. It is sitting and just plowing through document after document after document after document, and that's the due diligence angle. It just takes an immense amount of bandwidth in order to get through all the documents that a transaction needs, and it's just looking at risks and trying to pinpoint things that your client should be worried about in going through the transaction. But then as I got up in the years, and that was probably the first year, but then after that, I was actually running the transactions. So I was, sitting in meetings with the clients, with the people across the table, and negotiating these multi-billion-dollar transactions. And that's why I loved it so much. You're able to affect some pretty cool stuff. I worked on St. Michael's Hospital, Sheridan College, the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. Sorry, not the Eglinton, here, Ontario. So it was roads, penitentiaries, trains,
Gotcha.
all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty exciting.
And so what were you like negotiating? What was like the legal component of what you were doing? And think about someone who doesn't know law, trying to explain to them.
Yeah, the way I try to explain it is in every deal, there's a matrix of risk.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at a contract is really just an allocation of risk. And, it's saying you're responsible for this and I'm responsible for that. And if this goes wrong, it's your fault. And if this goes wrong, it's my fault. And I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. And so when you're negotiating these deals, it's really just taking the entire process of building a building. So utilities, construction, architecture, financing, all that kind of stuff. And really, you can actually print out a document that has a bunch of X's on it with the two parties and say, that's your responsibility, that's my responsibility. And you're effectively drafting a document to affect that risk division.
Gotcha. Okay. So what you would have a project and they'd say, hey, we're trying to put up this building or this new thing. And your group would come in and say, okay, well, we have all these pieces, all these different organizations, people, et cetera, that are needed to have the building become a building, to get built and everything. And here's who's responsible for what, et cetera. That was sort of what you guys.
Like I'll give you an example. So on major transit projects, utilities is a big thing because you usually have cables running down the side of streets.
Yeah.
And so if you're carrying up a street, you have to move those cables somewhere. And the person who can move those cables is Toronto Hydro or Enbridge or whoever that public company is.
Yep.
And so contractors are held to a certain schedule. And the question becomes, if I'm relying on a public body to move something, who bears that risk? Is it the developer or is it the contractor? And so you end up going into the details of, okay, if this goes wrong, then it's my problem. If this goes wrong, then it's your problem. And you divide up that risk of having to have that third party public entity come in and do work for you.
Okay, cool. And then, so then for,
it's a big puzzle.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I think it's unbelievable how these big projects happen, and there are so many details that you don't think about or have no idea. And so you get a little glimpse into someone's life, which is a small component of the, and it's just, you can imagine how intense the whole thing is, and the whole, like, so then what would like the partner do? And like, what would the, like, who else is involved in the deal? I guess you'd obviously have a partner then, and are they just more of the deal relationship stuff?
Yeah. So, and to put in perspective, the size of these projects is probably about a 1,600-page contract. Okay. So they're like mammoths. They're really big. The partner is responsible for oversight. So I was running the file, or an associate like me would run the file. They'd be in all the meetings. I would be leading all the meetings, but they would come to some of them and just make sure that everything's moving in the right direction. Most contractual things that I'm drafting or that I receive from other people, you use them as a resource, and they help you and guide you through drafting and putting everything together. So they're really oversight. They're definitely not on the work side, and they're trying to drum up business for the next project. So
right.
It's a bit of a mixed role in business development and a practice of legal, and they just know better than you do because they've been doing it for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So, but partner, when does partner typically happen? Is there a number of years that you need to be an associate for to become eligible to do that? And obviously there's politics involved, but
yeah, it's an ever changing target. I think that when I left, it was 8 years, and then you could be considered as partner, and then you had 2 years to become partner. And then that's the ladder that they talk about. It's, you're either up or out. So after that 2 years, the firm kind of signals to you that you're not gonna make it. So then you start looking elsewhere.
Right. And so when you were at McCarthy, like, were you thinking about the partner role and trying to be there? I mean, you were there for almost 4 years, it looks like, and on your way, I think, to getting those 8 years. That was a lot of invested. Did you consider it, or did you know that you wanted to maybe do something else later, and maybe being a partner would not allow you to do that?
So they call it the golden handcuffs for a reason.
Yeah.
I think that it's enticing to anybody. They're pretty open about what partners make, and it's nothing to sneeze at. But I think that ultimately what shifted me was, I saw, again, that I keep on saying lifestyle, so I guess that's important to me. But I looked at the lifestyle that those partners were living, and it wasn't for me. It's not like when you get to partner, all of a sudden all is good. When you get to partner, it gets harder, and it just wasn't the type of thing that I was looking to consume my all day, every day.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. And I guess the good thing, like, or the helpful thing, I guess, is you got a chance to see all that. You could be there and see what it was like to be a partner, being in the firm, and really appreciate it, and kind of make a decision for yourself. Hey, do I really want to work for this, or is there something else that I want to strive for?
Totally. And I would not trade my time at McCarthy's for anything. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I said, I view it as University 2.0, where you learn real life stuff and how the world works. You can read as many textbooks as you want, but until you start moving your feet, you don't know. So
is there a certain, like, personality, or maybe a way that you didn't fit in, potentially, that you thought, hey, because of this, I don't really think that being a law partner, despite all the benefits, is right for me? And maybe it's a lifestyle thing.
I think that there's definitely a lifestyle thing. I think that law is inherently a single man sport, because when you're drafting and when you're reviewing stuff, you can't do that with other people. Fine, you're going to walk down the hall and have a conversation with a colleague, but ultimately it's a single man sport. And so if you are someone who thrives on your own, and I don't even think it's an introvert extrovert thing, but it is a thriving on your own, because inherently that's just what the job is. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that, I enjoyed it. I wanted more human interaction, which is why I ended up going on the corporate side to Ivanhoe Cambridge, where the idea was you get integrated into the business decisions and you get integrated into the day to day. And so you're having conversations with more people earlier on in the process.
Yeah.
As a lawyer at a corporate firm, I was charging $580 an hour at that point. And so people don't want to talk to you because you cost money. So it's really inherently a single man sport, and you just gotta like that and like the kill of a deal, and it's yeah, I think that's what it is.
Interesting. I've never heard that perspective. I like that though. So then did you at this point you decided to go to Ivanhoe Cambridge? Did you think about at that stage like going out on your own and doing something? Like was a KitchenHub or related idea in your head now, or were you just, hey, I'm a relatively new dad, I need a good law job here, and found yourself in the corporate world?
So what I found was, and I'll repeat myself a little bit, but I found that when you work at a firm, the deal and the business decision and the reasoning and the strategy behind the business decision gets made before you come to a law firm. You're coming to a law firm to say, hey, we figured this deal out. Can you go and make it happen?
Yeah.
And fine, maybe there's a couple of conversations before you get to that point just to make sure that all the legalities work out. But ultimately, you're at the end of the deal. You're not at the beginning of the deal. And so with the business degree, I was kind of itching to get into that strategy business side of things. And so I was constantly looking for a business that I thought I would be a good fit in, where I could sit on that business side of things and the legal side of things. And I thought that would be an interesting way to practice law, where it moves from that single man sport to being more of a team.
Yeah.
So that was the reason behind going to Ivanhoe. And frankly, I won't lie, it was definitely hours. Like I said, I had my son and I wanted to be home for him and be a part of his life in that respect. So it was a little bit of both, but I do think that I got kind of sick of the single man sport for sure.
And so it wasn't that long though that then I guess started thinking about KitchenHub and your solo ideas after working at Ivanhoe.
Coming from McCarthy's and moving to Ivanhoe, the pace slowed down drastically.
Yeah.
Things that I was required to spit out in 20 minutes at a big law firm, I was getting a month to do at Ivanhoe Cambridge. And so I just found that I ended up getting a lot of time back.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to dig into some different ideas. And KitchenHub wasn't the first one. I had some other ones that I went down the rabbit hole on and decided to pull back on because, I saw that it was a business that, may or may not work and didn't really want to take the risk on it.
Right.
But you were actually one of the first restaurants that I talked to. And we went through those numbers and it's actually funny now that I'm recalling it. So you were one of the initial conversations that I had, and we kind of sat down with our numbers and said, I don't know if this is going to work, before we circled back to KitchenHub. And it wasn't until we talked to a partner that we now work with and realized that the potential for sales were 3 times more than what we were talking about, that we kind of looked at each other and said, okay, I guess this is a business, let's run at it. So it is funny. We went through a couple of iterations of KitchenHub or different businesses because of the conversation that I had with you, where we ran through the numbers and kind of pointed at the fact that it didn't work. So thanks for the challenge, because I think that those forays into different businesses made our vision of KitchenHub a hell of a lot stronger. So it worked out really well for us.
Yeah, and I mean, food, like anyone who's been in it, and you don't realize it until you're in it for a while, I think it's a volume game. It's very challenging.
Oh yeah,
very challenging to make anything work if it's not. And even the mom and pop, the way they get by typically is by not paying themselves very well.
Totally. It's
right?
a job. You're basically giving yourself a job
Right.
because you want to be out on your own and you have a love for food, and that's really why I love this business. You know, the people that you talk to ended up here by accident because and kind of just fell in love with the passion behind it and the love for food.
Yeah.
And so it was just refreshing to have a different perspective of why people wake up in the morning and go to work. And I've loved it. I love talking to restaurants about why they named their company what they did, and how, you know, in your instance, you're sourcing local food, and that's a huge driver for you, and sustainability and everything like that. Like there's a lot of passion behind it, and it's contagious. It totally is.
Did you a question that I wanted to ask from before, this is taking a mild step back, was just related to the, I guess, the your mind going, because it sounds like McCarthy taught you that you have to be on all the time, that you're always think about this, always you're just kind of, it's going, it's going, it's going, and then when you sort of hit the brakes on the workload by going somewhere else, or just honestly having a bunch of deals not happen, or just having a slow period, and like for me, my mind would just continue, like it would just try to find things to do, and it would just end up trending towards business ideas.
My
Is yours like that?
my my wife makes fun of me all the time because that is an exact description of me.
Yeah.
The training of always being on, it permeates through everything.
Yeah.
You will rarely see me sitting down doing nothing, because I just have to be moving and doing something, and whatever that is, idle hands can't have idle hands.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had talked to people, say, back in the day, because I had a similar thought to you, in that I had always, my whole family is basically in some form of their own business. I feel like everyone I know has sort of done it, and so it's always been something that I wanted. And there was a long part where I had no ideas, or I felt like I had no idea what I would ever possibly do. And it's really funny now, because now that I'm in it and own a business, I come up with business ideas like just constantly. Like I started to make a list on my phone, and it kind of got exhausting, because I was just always writing, adding ideas to this list. Once you get going on it, and you sort of, I think, change how your mind thinks about it, it's really very easy to come up with ideas, and it's more of of just having the time to execute on all those ideas, and
Yeah.
actually see them, versus coming up with them. It's fun. I don't know, I guess may resonate with you too, but I'm sort of in that zone.
I think that what it's done for me is, that's why I love being in a brand new industry. You know, taking something and running with it in a completely different direction, because I'm able to do that within the confines of my business. Like constantly thinking of new ways and permutations and things and ways to tackle the same problem.
Yeah.
Uh, I've become a little obsessed with the whole industry, and you know, reading books and articles and everything on it, and I actually find that obsessive, you know, iteration of business ideas just happens within the confines of KitchenHub. Like the last one was, I don't know how many metro racks you've built, but we end up building a lot because of all the storage and for takeout bags and storage rooms and everything like that. And they are the worst thing to make and break down and change. And it's just, even just something as simple as that, as redesigning a shelf, is kind of what ends up coming into my pipeline, if you will.
Right. Yes. How could you make it so that this shelf just easily glides up and down however you want
Yeah,
it, and whatever?
holy
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anyone listening to this, if you've never built a metro rack shelf, you have not lived.
Yeah. Well, it's like an IKEA. I don't know. It's like an IKEA piece of furniture.
Oh, it's worse, because you know exactly how to build it. It's not that it's complicated to build.
Yeah.
It's just a pain in the butt to deal with.
It's just you got to do it. Were you scared to leave your job, or did you have a good amount of confidence, or what gave you the confidence, I guess I would say, to start KitchenHub and leave kind of the probably safer world of law?
It's so funny. I used to listen to the podcast. Oh man, what is it? It's a startup podcast, and I would always listen to it. And the question that he would always ask is exactly what you just asked. Were you ever nervous about it not working? And the answer every single time, 100% of the time, was I never had any doubt that it would work. And it resonates with me as soon as it happened. It's one of those things where Oren and I had gone through enough permutations, met enough people, visited enough sites, looked at the industry, did all our research. I actually didn't really think twice about it. It was just I knew that it would work, and it was something that between Oren and I, we complemented each other so well that I knew that we had the right two people to go ahead and start this. And so, I don't know. I wouldn't say that I sleep better at night. I mean, I definitely am up thinking about a lot of things, but definitely not about whether or not this thing will work.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, so then, okay, so maybe didn't get the chance to explain it. I realize now as well as probably it needs to be. Why don't you explain what KitchenHub is, probably in a little more detail?
Enough. Yeah, KitchenHub is a shared facility for restaurants to come in. We provide turnkey kitchen space that's optimized for off-premise sales. Restaurants come in with their chefs, their food, and their brand, and we deal with everything else. So we build the kitchen space, we run the front of house, we're your GM, we manage the facility, clean ducts, and arrange for pest control and garbage and all that kind of stuff. And the idea is getting restaurants into a satellite kitchen, having a lot of restaurants that can stand shoulder to shoulder with each other. So a Pie, Carbon Bar, those types of brands where we build an ecosystem where all of them can leverage off of each other. And we do that predominantly today through KitchenHub Food Hall, where a consumer can come on and order from all the brands on one delivery fee. So gone are the days where you're sitting down with your family and all three of you want different things from different restaurants. You don't have to do the 3 orders anymore. You can order, the best Thai in the city, the best barbecue in the city, all from one space. So it's giving restaurants the opportunity to expand in a meaningful way, and they don't have to go and build brick and mortar. All they have to do is do what they do best, which is cook food, and it's giving consumers food faster, quicker, in the way that, frankly, they've been demanding it over the last couple of years. From our facility, clicking the button for food to order it and having it in your hands is about 32 minutes. So we're really focused down on getting food to the customer really quickly so that it's hot, fresh, and frankly, in the way that the restaurant intended for that person to consume it.
Yeah, and I guess that the term is kind of ghost kitchen, and that's been popularized probably more in the States, where I know they may have 20 or 30 restaurants under one roof. And really the real estate play, I think, is that instead of spending a lot of money on this expensive real estate, like you mentioned, where you're just doing takeout predominantly, which seems to be how people want to eat these days, takeout and delivery, you just jam people into one space, but just do it in an efficient way where you just are using the space that you need to make the food that you need on that night and designing it so you can put out a lot of volume, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And then the hard part, which is kind of the logistics around it and taking the orders and all that, you focus on that. You as KitchenHub are the ones sort of executing on that. And so for the restaurant, it's just making food as fast as you can, but doing it in a way where, because you're just focused on the food, it's not like you're also focused on taking orders and cleaning and the host duties and all that sort of stuff. It's just like, hey, just cook. And so you can get really, really good at it because it's all you're doing.
You want to what? You're hired. Do you want to be my salesperson?
Well, I've been right. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So what do you think of it then, is like, when you think about your goals, like you have the one location which has been running for almost a year?
Yeah, almost a year.
What, like, how do you then quantify your goals? And I think you had COVID-19 in there, which maybe bad and then turned into probably good. What's the new dream?
Yeah, so COVID-19, I would say, is a bit of a double-edged sword. Clearly, it is us, delivery at home and consumption at home. I think one of the biggest things for us that it's done is it poured jet fuel on the habit of people cooking with their phone. But the double-edged sword of it, and the negative side of it, is that all of a sudden you have all these incredible restaurants and people that have been putting, frankly, their heart and soul into running and operating their business, and they're not getting much help from the fact that they keep on having to open and then close and open again. And I know that we've had that conversation a couple of times. And it's super tough on the restaurants, and you're seeing a lot of really great quality, incredible operators go down because they just don't have another choice. And so we're seeing people that we otherwise would love to work with not being able to wrap their head around expanding into something new at this time because, frankly, they just got to keep the ship afloat. So
Yeah.
I think that it's we saw a trend before the pandemic, and that trend definitely got some amplification from it. But then the industry as a whole has seen definitely restaurateurs take a really big hit. But that being said, there is a silver lining in it for us, and that is that we've seen a lot of success out of our facility, and the restaurateurs that are in our facility are happy to follow us to future locations. And we've been having some great conversations with other restaurateurs. And the goal is to build out that platform for restaurants to expand and have satellite locations to address markets that they otherwise wouldn't build brick and mortar locations in. And so our first goal is to tackle Toronto and set up locations. I'm currently sitting in one of our new facilities that we're in the process of building out. It's going to have 13 kitchens in it. And then we have another one that we're also building out that's downtown east. And it's really just marching forward and building out that platform because we see the success in it even today during the pandemic. And we're pretty blessed because we started operating January 15th. So we had a month and a half of really being operational without COVID. And frankly, we only know what running a business during COVID is.
Yeah. And I mean, even though we talk about vaccines and we talk about all the, I think it's still going to be challenges for the old restaurant model. No, I don't know, in the foreseeable future, as far as I can tell. So I think this is also just a great trial for people that if your service is actually good, right? If it's actually good to have food delivered and you can actually do it in 32 minutes and keep it hot and all that sort of stuff, it's a great way to get everyone to try it out. And if that is true, then why not do it? I think it's kind of the game. So I imagine, yeah, you're now kind of thinking about expansion and all that because it does kind of make a lot of sense in many ways. And for restaurants, what I'm realizing just in the restaurant world is, yeah, having this giant footprint and all this real estate that you are then just hopeful that people will come into and sit and buy your food. It's very risky.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that what the pandemic's done a lot of things to the restaurant industry. I think that the thing that I love is actually all the creativity that's come out of it, and that typically happens when you have your back up against the wall and you got to figure out how to keep yourself afloat. And stuff like frankly what you're doing, switching to delivering pre-made food at home and building yourself another vertical of revenue so that when the pandemic's over, all of a sudden you got this really robust corporation where you're not just a restaurant at home or a restaurant in your four walls. You've actually expanded to that fifth wall, and you've expanded your reach and your brand and people's ability to enjoy your food in multiple ways. And I think that that's just the definition of a restaurant moving forward. If you're just cooking food and doing a brick and mortar, you better be giving a really incredible experience that you can't get anywhere else. Because frankly, I think you need to be in all these different verticals and be thinking about your restaurant as not just a restaurant, but an opportunity to feed people at different times and in different ways.
Yeah. Cool. And so do you think, this is my last question, how do you think your law degrees helped you in KitchenHub the most, or and just being an entrepreneur generally?
It is definitely giving me the ability to critically think, and like I've said already a couple times during this conversation, it really was a university 2.0 when I went to the law firm. So just getting exposed to things quickly, thinking in a structured way, and that critical thinking and putting together deals and connecting dots and all that kind of stuff. Something that you said earlier, which was you had to memorize all these different contracts and know where things were and how they were affected. I mean, in a 1,600-page document, if you changed a word on page 1, I could tell you that it affected a word on page 30, 50, 600, and 1,020, just because you knew that web of how it all connected. So I think that critical thinking and that puzzle piece aspect of it was pretty integral to how I'm working today, for sure.
And bonus question, is there something that you studied or learned about doing your undergrad in philosophy that you now use today with your life and your family?
Uh, for the philosophy, I would actually go back to a class about color. So it was the study of color, and it was from a philosophy and science perspective. And so you got into people thinking about explaining color and how different people see it without the science behind it. And then when you looked at the science behind it and figuring out what actually color is. And I think what that did, and again, it's something that I said earlier, is it taught you to think of things in a 360 perspective. Like, you have that problem and you can kind of dance around it and see it for what it is in all the different ways. So I use that all day, every day, in relationship, business, everything. It really helps to be able to empathize and understand the perspective of other people and different ways that different things can affect opportunities.
Nice. I don't know how you answered that so quickly. You must have thought of that before. I thought I would stump you. I thought you'd pause a little bit before and contemplate on the rock and then come up with the answer. But you knew right away. Good job.
Yeah, it's I know what it is. Of all the degrees and all the things that I've ever done in my life, my philosophy degree is the thing that I think has helped me the most. So,
yeah.
A lot of people don't think that way when they're going into it, but it gives you the ability to think in a lot of really cool ways. And so that answer is off the tip of my tongue because it's one that I believe in. For
Still
sure.
with you. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thanks for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was great, and good luck with everything. And
well, there you have it. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you learned a little bit more about the corporate law world and what it's actually like and what they do. There's lawyers everywhere, so it seems, and I'm always interested in wanting to know, hey, what do you do and what is your part of the pie? So I hope you learned a little bit there in hearing from Adam. Thanks for listening. And if you know anyone or you yourself may be interested in being interviewed on my podcast, please let me know. Go to lifetimeatwork.com. There you can send me a message and just tell me about it. I'm always interested in finding new people and different perspectives and different careers. So with that, until next time, thanks for listening, and don't worry, be happy.